Well, it's one of Canada's most infamous intersections, Toronto's Jane and Finch. On the surface, it may look like any urban neighborhood, but below that surface lies an epidemic of gang violence, drugs, and fatherlessness. It's a deadly cocktail that threatens the children of this neighborhood. But as reporter Denise Lottie found out, there are some seeds of hope there. One that may be familiar to many 100 Huntley Street viewers.
Jordan Manners was called the Prince of Shoreham. But whatever future he may have had abruptly ended when the 15-year-old boy was murdered, the first ever fatal shooting in a Toronto school. What followed was an outpouring of grief and outrage. And while there's a provincial inquiry into his death and the arrests of 2 young men in connection to the murder, the tragedy is anything but resolved. Police have repeatedly emphasized that Jordan Manners was not a gangbanger. He wasn't involved in guns or drugs. So why was this 15-year-old boy shot and killed in his own school? It's a mystery that has troubled the Jane Finch community, and especially those who knew and loved Jordan. People like Benjamin Osei.
You know, it's a visible reminder of the violence that these children live with. Yeah, anybody at all. You know, it can happen to anybody at all.
The makeshift memorial made by school children blends right into the nearby playground, a place Jordan knew well.
He is a little fun, outgoing boy. Anytime you come around here, you see him outside here, playing in this park or riding a little scooter around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like he likes to draw attention. Who helped to put this park?
The playground is also a place Osei knows well. Like many children here in this Jane Finch neighborhood, Jordan called him Uncle Ben.
Are you coming in?
Osei is a youth worker and organizes activities and programs for at-risk youth, kids like Jordan Manners.
I was shocked. Like he was part of the basketball program we had at the Driftwood Community Center. He was there in the Tuesday, came to play ball around. Then the Wednesday I learned somebody had shot him.
Sadly, Osei also knows the 2 arrested in connection to his murder. They too were part of the basketball program.
I know them. They are also part of they also come and play basketball at the same center with him. You know?
Right.
Yeah, like it's shocking. One of them is even the one I call upon to help me volunteer, coach the kids. Like, sincerely speaking, it doesn't make sense to me.
Osei isn't the only one who doesn't understand why Manners was killed. It's a tragedy that has reached far beyond the borders of Jane and Finch.
Yeah, because as I said, a lot of these things happen and it's just another statistics. But this one, I think, it caught the hearts of not only the media, but everyone, and made everybody angry because it happened in the school. The school is supposed to be safe, you know.
Protection is an elusive term here, especially in the wake of Manners' murder. The arrests that followed have failed to bring any real sense of security. Project Cryptic, a mass police crackdown on gang activity that fuels the violence in this neighborhood, has also done little to quell fears, despite 60 arrests and $1 million in drug and gun seizures. Osei says that's because gang activity is strong, and the draw to get involved is often irresistible for young boys.
The point is, the people who give them the guns to the kids are not bad people.
Yeah.
They are very good people in the neighborhood too. The ice cream truck comes, and they buy ice cream for them. Mm-hmm. To them, they are good people. The school is over there. Lunchtime, they are hanging around there. Those who don't have lunch, they give them lunch.
But it's more than just buying them things. It's filling a gap left by fathers. This block of townhouses is known as Single Mother's Corner.
You find men around here, but the men are the children of these women.
Yeah.
Yeah, the children of the women, and they do their own thing. They find it very difficult.
So boys have to grow up really fast.
Yeah.
Osei says mothers do the best they can, but they just can't take the place of a father.
It made it easier for the men just to have children and run away, knowing the government is there to give them free housing or cheap housing, and the government is there to feed their children, so they don't take responsibility.
Uncle Ben has become a surrogate father to many in this neighborhood, and he knows nearly every child he sees by name. Quite a remarkable feat when you consider where he comes from. When we first met Benjamin Osei, he was in a crisis of his own. A refugee from his adopted home of Sierra Leone, he'd been living in Canada and working as a youth worker when he got a deportation order. Despite widespread community and media involvement to keep him in Canada, he was forced to leave with no return date in sight. It was a heartbreaking departure, especially for the kids of Jane and Finch. But miraculously, 10 months later, he was back for good, this time with his wife and 2 children. The Osei family has had a few years to get adjusted to their new home and have even welcomed a new addition to the family.
When I get homesick, I come and buy one of these stuff.
Okay, wait, what is this?
This is banana leaf.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's
I thought
corn.
it was a cow foot.
No, the cow foot is over there.
And in case they ever get homesick, there's this West African grocery store in the neighborhood to stock up on comfort food. But while he's a dedicated father, Osei hasn't forgotten the children of Jane and Finch. That's why he lives in this neighborhood and works full-time as a youth worker with Youth Unlimited. His work background is baking bread, and youth work isn't what brought him to Jane and Finch. Cheap rent.
Yeah, cheap rent. That's how I got here.
And you would come into this park and just...
Yeah, here and down there. When you go
Right.
in there, there's a little community place in between there. I'll just sit there and the children will come around and I'll tell them funny African stories.
And that's when he realized there was a huge need for surrogate fathers. So he started small, organizing basketball games and activities in his spare time. The need was so great, it became a full-time ministry.
So I think God has put me here for a purpose that is beyond my understanding. And I found myself doing something that I never planned in my life. This is what I want to do.
But he always thought he would go back to Africa.
I wanted to have a skill training center for youth in Africa. I wanted to work with the youth because I thought all the problems in the world was in Africa. I never imagined a place in Canada having this type of problems. You know? And when I came here, you've seen we not only have African food, we have African people. We have people from all over the world here. The people that are so passionate of reaching them in Africa, they are here and God has sent me here, come and deal with this. Lost,
But there have been setbacks. He's battled cancer and has the ongoing challenge of raising his own salary for his work in the community.
If one young person is derailed, we are all at risk. One young person is at risk in the community, the whole community is at risk. And we have to rally around to help that one person to be on track.
And the best way to do that is give them hope. This is the second summer of the Seeds of Hope Day Camp. And for only $50 a summer, kids have a place where they can learn and grow in safety, security, and love. They can also get their groove on. But it's not without challenges.
A lot of the kids who come to us have behavioral issues or emotional issues, and so it's a lot of working through those things in order to then start teaching them, being able to work kind of on their character with them.
Part of character building is learning about God. The crafts and activities and songs are designed to teach them that they matter, that they have a Father in heaven.
Our Father, which art in heaven.
This week's lesson is the Lord's Prayer, especially poignant for a group of children who have grown up without a father.
I have seen a change in one of the kids who used to be very close, like the first few days, and now if I take him out, he'll actually tell me, this is what's going on at home. And that's a huge step. Like, even to get them in the line quietly, it's the biggest accomplishment. Like, it's really about perspective.
While there are plenty of subsidized field trips and activities, money isn't the biggest need to keep this day camp running.
People, dedicated people, like finding people who are willing, because this is really a ministry job, The money is not enough for what you have to do. But once you get into it and you do it, it just becomes a passion. Like, this is my second summer and this is like a passion for me. I love it here, and we need people who are willing to give their time to volunteer or whatever it is and support us in that way.
The kids aren't the only ones who know and love their Uncle Ben.
For me, as a single mom, it's very affordable for me. And the benefits to my kids is that they're getting their summer program, plus being taught values from a Christian point of view. So it's the best of both worlds.
He's a good person. He watches after us. He sets a good example for us.
I hear you used to be a troublemaker.
Yep,
What
that was
changed?
2 years ago.
What happened?
I matured.
Many of these kids also knew and loved Jordan Manners, and his death still haunts them.
His death was very emotional for my family and other friends of mine.
We hope that the families of Jordan will be able to move on and not forget him, but to think about whoever did this to him can just be able, that God can help them to not do that again for killing people. Because I knew him, he was a good friend, we used to play basketball.
So what are you going to do now? Your mom is coming back for you.
But they know Uncle Ben is watching over them. He'll even scold them if they go too far. But at the end of the day, they know he's got their back.
Let it shine on Jane and Finch. I'm gonna let it shine.
And he prays their lights won't be snuffed out like Jordan Manners. Though Osei says he needs all the help he can get.
There are so many Christians in Jane and Finch, born in Toronto. Jane and Finch, a lot of churches. Let us make it our number one priority, because this problem of violence is not something beyond our reach. We just need the time. This is not AIDS that we have to find scientific methods to bring out a medicine or vaccine. It's a social menace that Christians have the solution to.
In Toronto, Denise Lottie, 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you, Denise, for that great report. Now, we've also asked another of our reporters, Shireen Barsoom, to join us on the couch. Shireen, you have ministered in the Jane and Finch area for 8 years with Urban Promise before you came to join the team here at 100 Huntley Street. Give us some reflections on that time.
I actually worked in the Scarborough community,
Okay.
and I'd spent a little bit of time in the West End as well. And I was there volunteering for 4 years and working for 4 years as well. But Denise, I mean, when I watched that man is a hero.
He is. When people ask me, like, oftentimes, what have been your favorite stories? And from the very beginning, Benjamin Osei has been right up there. Not just the story of when he was deported. I mean, I got a chance to be part of that whole incredible, miraculous journey that God has taken this man on. But he really, truly is my hero, because not only has he filled this incredible need, but he's staying faithful to that call. When he came back with his family, I mean, he's still living in the same apartment building in Jane and Finch. I don't know a lot of people who would do that. He is, he's had to battle so many different things. Here's a man who has to raise his own salary, okay? And the kind of work that he does. And what amazed me even more is how much he knows these kids. He literally knows them by name. And I'm like, when we were doing the interview, he would be like, oh, there's so-and-so. And one kid even said to him, hey, how do you know my name? And he's like, oh, I spoke at your school. And he and do you know what that means to a child? Children who feel like they don't matter, that someone knows your name, someone is actually watching out, even if they have to scold you and say, hey, don't do that. I mean, it's something. It speaks something to them.
Especially being validated by a man.
By a male figure. And this is what he said. I mean, he moved to Jane and Finch because it was cheap rent originally. And I should clarify, Jane and Finch is a neighborhood in Toronto. It was cheap rent, but he was just hanging out, and he saw the need. And it's not like God gave him this massive calling, like, okay, I want you to go to Jane and Finch, I want you to start a basketball program. It was just bit by bit by bit, and look at where it has led.
Shireen, why were you crying? Like during that piece, I was watching you as you're watching the piece, and you're tearing and getting emotional. Why?
I think because when I worked with kids in similar communities, I know what those kids, the potential that's in them, and because they don't have a dad or a male role model, so they're not afforded the same kind of opportunities that kids who do. And they're beautiful children, and all kids are beautiful, but a lot of times they're labeled as the kids that come out of Jane and Finch. And there's one thing that I really want to clarify, that just because you're born in these different communities doesn't automatically mean that you are going to grow up and be a drug dealer, you're going to grow up and be whatever. Oftentimes, actually, the majority of people in that community are actually not involved in those activities. And because they're vulnerable or below the line, the poverty line communities, oftentimes the situations actually come into the communities, and they're not necessarily ones that have come from within the community. So I want to make that clear, because oftentimes people feel ashamed because they come from these communities. And
it's great to see so many young kids in that summer program.
Right. Yeah.
And it was so reasonable, $50.
Well,
but I'm sure for some people, even that is the bridge too far. Are some of them sponsored, Denise? Is
Yeah,
there an
this is the
opportunity?
amazing thing, and it's great that we're talking about business today, because a Bay Street business sponsors that day camp. Okay, so they have seen, they have heard about the work Benjamin is doing in this community, and the reason they charge $50 is you have to put some worth on it, otherwise people can take these things for granted, right? So $50 for 2 months of summer programs, and they get to do trips to the zoo and Ontario Place, all these kind of
snacks and crafts.
Snacks and crafts included. So I mean, it's an amazing thing. But not only does this business sponsor, they also are taking some of the kids in a limo ride to the business, so that they can see, hey, you know, my life doesn't have to be like this. Right. And if I work hard, if I apply myself, if I, you know, make these efforts, I can actually get out of this. You know, I don't have to repeat the history that's all around me. I don't have to be what I'm seeing next door. I can be something. I have a chance. And so the key is to find these kids, to give them guidance, mentorship, and also opportunities.
And so here's the challenge, and here's the challenge to men out there specifically, if we're talking about fatherless. This is a challenge for people to look outside of themselves and to see investments. Like I could see these kids as investments. If I put my time, if I direct my energy and my love, these kids are going to come out shining, and they're going to come out strong.
And you know, I have to say, Shereen, because it's a beautiful piece on, they're talking about the Lord's Prayer about our Father, and there's been a theme throughout Full Circle, a lot about fathers and the importance of father, but then what that means about our Heavenly Father, about God Himself as being the Father to those that are fatherless, the orphan. And I think that's that's actually really touched me, in that the need for the investment of fathers, but the need for community of Christians, of followers of Jesus, to bring the Father's love to communities like that. That to say, you know what, there is a Father that loves you.
And it's something we can all give if we've experienced it ourselves. I mean, you can't give something you don't have. So if you don't have a revelation of the Father's love, it's going to be hard for you to give that away. But also, I think, you know, we don't have to be from Jane and Finch to minister to Jane and Finch. I mean, God took a man from Sierra Leone to come to Jane and Finch and minister there. I mean, so I think some people might be a little bit intimidated to go into these neighborhoods. And even when I was there, I was like, you know, you feel a little bit like out of place sometimes. But these kids don't care. Yeah. They see you, and they'll look at you, and if they see that you actually care about them and that you're there because you want to be there, that means something.
The litmus test is, are you authentic?
Are you authentic, right?
That's what it is.
We've talked about the changing definition of family now, and I think, you know, I've had a lot of calamities lately, broken toe, broken finger, and I walked into a door yesterday, and someone said, you know, the enemy is trying to destabilize you. Well, there is a destabilizing going on in our culture, and childhood is an unprotected stage of life development, whether you live at Jane and Finch or in the most wonderful neighborhood you can describe. And it is a call, as Melinda has said, to all of us who know the Father and know God's best, to reach outside our comfortable circle and help to extend His grace.
And on that note, I want to encourage you, if something stirred in you and you're saying, yeah, I want to reach out. Maybe you're in the Toronto area and you want to see how you can help in the Jane and Finch area. Maybe you're on the other side of the country, but you know there's a similar neighborhood near you that you want to reach into. Go to our website at crossroads.ca. There are links there on how you can be a part of what is happening in your area, and you can pour your resources, your prayer, your finances, your time into those around you that really do need it. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Shereen. Very good report. Well, we'll be right back with a few final thoughts right after these messages.